We've got a packed WrestleTalk news for you today, with Roman Reigns shooting on CM Punk, why Raw Underground wasn't on this week's episode, an AEW star no longer with the company, and more. But first, our main story. Did Alan Angels poop his pants on last night's AEW Dark? According to Alan Angels himself, no, I did not poop my pants tonight. It was Luchasaurus's face paint, which I did though. Would have been a much better story. Speaking of people who've crapped themselves in the ring segue, since turning heel on his return at last month's SummerSlam, your tribal chief and mine, Roman Reigns, has switched his usually very respectful interview persona for a much harder shooting approach. And in a recent interview with Complex Sports' Load Management, which coincidentally is also the name of your mum's podcast, she's available wherever you get your podcasts from, Roman had some harsh words for the man who kayfabe introduced him to the main WWE roster, CM Punk. I don't like the guy. I don't know many people who do, but I'm willing to put business first and make really good content if that's the case. He'd probably have to be slapped around a few times in order to get his mind right. The last former Shield member who tried to beef with Punk didn't go down so well, Roman. Reigns referenced the explosively shooty 2014 Colt Cabana podcast with Punk after he had left WWE, explaining his comments about Roman at that time made my job a lot harder. In that podcast, Punk spoke about how WWE agents wanted him to make Roman look strong when he was feuding with The Shield. While this was more an anecdote to describe WWE's backstage booking, Roman appears to have taken it personally, believing it encouraged the negative fan reaction to his babyface push. In those same podcasts, Punk also claimed he came up with the Shield idea, where he handpicked Seth Rollins, Jon Moxley, and Chris Hero for the faction, but WWE went for Roman instead. Roman could legitimately not like Punk, or it could all be a worky McWorkface, the technical term for when wrestlers present storylines as fact. Punk was working with WWE via Fox for their backstage studio show as recently as June before it was cancelled. There were many reports late last year that Punk could be tempted back to a WWE ring with a big bag of money. It was later reported, though, that Vince McMahon never wanted to work with Punk again. However, those are the words of a man who signed off on the wrestler named Slapjack, so take that for what it's worth. Do you think Roman Reigns and CM Punk will have a match? And how would that go down? Let me know in the comments down below, because I'll be replying to people from out of Alan Angels definitely not pooped in pants. Roman also spoke about how he could also feud with future US President Rock the Dwayne Johnson. I think I'm the guy. If there is anybody that he would feel comfortable with in the ring and have the proper build-up and can rise to that occasion, there's no doubt I'm the guy. We will definitely have to crack a lot of eggs to get that. Confirmation there that The Rock wants to be paid in eggs for the protein. Now, before we get on with the rest of the news, I just want to say a huge thank you to this episode's returning sponsor. You wanted it back. The Muscle Hustle. 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 The Muscle Hustle is a wrestling pool RPG super smash-up game for your phone, where you collect, train, level up, and evolve hundreds of different wrestlers into your own super faction, and then flick them at your opponents. Everyone said it couldn't be done, even the initial company making it, so the original development team have taken it over, and it's been updated all the time, with new characters, modes, and a PvP season now added. But don't just take my words for it, here's comments from you. Dean Golston demands more Muscle Hustle, Ollie. More Muscle Hustle. 1217 gives us a fun fact. The Muscle Hustle is actually a very good game with a great community, and Marcus Medina notes the Muscle Hustle will make more money than XFL in 2020. Vince fears the Muscle Hustle and is also probably slightly aroused by it. So support them and support WrestleTalk by downloading the Muscle Hustle now, and also follow them at the Muscle Hustle on Twitter to get involved with the community. Congratulations, WWE Raw, because despite despite putting on 2 back-to-back terrible shows, and everyone speculating Mondays would be one of the lowest rated episodes ever because of competition from the NBA, they didn't do as bad as they normally do, pulling in 1.82 million viewers, which is up 150,000 from the previous week. There are many possible reasons why. The Clash of Champions post-pay-per-view bump, cameos from Charlotte's dad, people's remote controls breaking, but also, most likely, there was no Raw Underground. According to Fightful Select, this isn't because Shane McMahon's sweaty scuffle club has been dropped indefinitely. It's reportedly yet another consequence of last week's COVID outbreak in the company. Many of the Performance Center wrestlers were used as in-ring fighters and extras for the crowd, but with many of those now self-isolating and Raw being brought down to a skeleton crew, the segment was deemed unnecessary. Rather than already filmed matches getting cut from the show, like it happened with Marina Shafir and Jessamine Duke's debuts last month, Fightful notes this time nothing was filmed in advance. The COVID outbreak is also reportedly why Metrobution weren't physically on this week's episode, only getting a light flickering spot. Although the 5 core members tested negative for the disease, they are apparently self-isolating for 2 weeks after coming into contact with a confirmed case. Continuing their strong Twitter game, T-Bar called out those who were happy about this. If your response to the news that people were potentially exposed to COVID-19 was good, then you should probably reassess your morals as a human being. It's that exact sort of moral behavior that makes Retribution such a force of chaos, like when they signed brand-exclusive WWE contracts, which were hopefully worth a lot more than other NXT call-ups were offered. It was previously reported that this year's Raw and SmackDown call-ups weren't actually given new main roster contracts. With the uncertain nature of the pandemic and no touring shows, WWE were more hesitant to commit to long-term relationships than Megan was after she went on that girl's holiday and met Tommy, that son of a bitch! Fightful Select is reporting, though, that WWE are starting to finalize new deals with the call-ups, but the money associated with these contracts is way below what wrestlers were being offered last year. Throughout 2019, wrestlers were able to play AEW and WWE off one another to leverage more money. It's not a good sign for the former Zack Ryder, now wrestling as Matt Cardona, if he had any hopes to play one side against the other, as he's also currently out of work for AEW 2. Talking to the Pro Wrestling Junkies podcast, Cardona revealed that his AEW agreement actually expired with September 5th's All Out, as it was only a short-term deal. While he struggled to get over in his brief run, he was optimistic about returning soon, as he wants to win some titles in the company and wants a run longer than just 3 t-shirts. Just a t-shirt company though, aren't they? And now it's time for a roundup of everything else in wrestling news. According to the very reliable WrestleVotes, Sasha Banks vs. Bayley is being planned as the main event of Hell in a Cell inside Hell in a Cell. Who could have seen that stipulation coming? As it's currently one of the longest running and hottest programs in the company, it's a well-deserved slot, and another example of how well WWE has presented and booked its women's division this year. Karaoke segment notwithstanding. Following several allegations of sexual assault as part of the Speaking Out movement, former Impact star Joey Ryan has filed a pair of lawsuits against his accusers, according to reports from Heel by Nature and PW Insider. The suits are worth several $1 million and cover economic and non-economic damages, including revenue lost from bookings and social media, as well as libel and emotional distress. After initially tweeting her support of the storyline between her real-life ex-fiancé Murphy and Aaliyah Mysterio, posting, "Honestly, I don't blame him, LOL, hashtag shoot your shot, bud," in a since deleted tweet, Alexa Bliss temporarily locked her Twitter account when some fans angrily pointed out Buddy is 32 and Aaliyah is 19, seemingly offended by the superficial similarities to the Speaking Out movement's expose of online grooming. Alexa later clarified she wasn't aware of Aaliyah's age, suggesting, shock, that sometimes what people post online shouldn't be interpreted in the worst possible way, and she was just happy Murphy is getting the success he's worked for. What do you think about the Aaliyah and Murphy storyline? It does seem to have riled a few people up, so let me know in the comments. Some found last year's Lana, Bobby Lashley, Liv Morgan lover Rusev jumping out of a cake wedding angle more offensive. Offensive because It was a steaming pile of horse crap, and we now know one of the many reasons why, as Rusev, now going by Miro in AEW, told Chris Van Vliet of WWE's long-term plans for the storyline. No plan. One-time pop. No plan. A lot of things were made for one-time pops. That was it. People thought, and they made up all these things. No, it was a one-time thing that was great and was going to get people talking, because at that time, the showrunner was about getting people talking and controversy. The showrunner at that time being Paul Heyman. And finally, in what might be the most significant wrestling business story this month, New Japan Pro Wrestling announced yesterday that their president, Harold Meij, will be stepping down effective October 23rd. Meij served as president for 2 years, where he promised international expansion and a big money television deal. Neither really took off because of a combination of their top US stars leaving to form AEW, consistently underestimating ticket demand in the States, and the small matter of a global pandemic. Meij will be replaced by Takami Ibari, who is the current CEO of New Japan of America. Retribution was pulled from this week's Raw. Find out what happened backstage and my review of the show by clicking the video on the right. And what are the 14 greatest WWE video packages of all time? Click the video below that for Adam Blompier's latest list. I've been Mr. Davis, commanding you to do the muscle hustle. Download it using the links below.